This session is all about the deep dive in the product. So we are not going to get into the presentations a lot. We're going to spend more and more time on the product. And so it's going to be a deep dive. I'm going to touch base all the layers in the product. I'm going to talk about the best practices, things that you might miss, or some of the frequently asked questions that we received in the team when we try to use the product and so on. So I'm going to keep that in this aspect. So this is the agenda. So as I said, I'm just going to simplify the process of learning analytics with 4 different stages. And that's what I'm going to start with. And the 4 different stages are nothing but something that you can see here. It's all about the data connections, data preparations, analysis, and collaboration. I'll just take it up one by one. So if you know this is, the first stage that you see here at the left is technically it's 2 different stages. You're connecting the data sources, you consolidate all the data, then you prepare the data. That's the first 2 stages. The third stage is analyzing the data. 4th stage is how you collaborate that with other users. From here, we'll get into the product right away. So that's the home screen of Zoho Analytics. So obviously you can see that some of the workspaces. So if you're already using the product, you would know that there are some workspaces in the application. If you're new to the application altogether, workspace is nothing but it's kind of like a drive in a Windows machine, which helps you to organize your files, folders, and everything. So if you have a use case where you want to combine data from multiple data sources and do analytics on top of it, you have to do everything in a single workspace, right? So whatever the data source that you want to combine from various places, you just want to put it together in a single place and do blending and cross-functional analysis and so on. The thumb rule is to put everything into a single workspace. Else, if you have requirements that you want to split the data and maintain the analytics separately for different departments. For example, you want to analyze the payroll data of your employees, but you don't want to reveal that to all the users in your organization. So in that case, maintain that payroll data in a separate workspace. Or you have different entities. Let's say you have 5 different entities. You want to maintain all the analytics of these entities into a separate space. You can do that as well. So you can maintain multiple workspaces. Now, in terms of connecting data, that's the first stage. All you need to do is just go ahead and click on import your data at the right-hand side top corner. Now, in terms of data connectivity, Zoho Analytics broadly categorize the data connections into 3 different aspects, right? The first one, we call it as essential connections or basic import or something, which is nothing but every business will have Excel files, CSV files, so and so on. So you prefer to connect data from those simple files, then you can do that. But something that some customers might miss that is it's not just the Excel and CSV connections. We also allow you to import data from different file formats like JSON and XML and so on. These are all not used very frequently in the business front, but developers who prefer to export data from some applications manually and import it, these file formats will help. Okay. And also, if you're aware of something called spatial files are nothing but, let's say you define the custom boundary of your geolocations in terms of this is my zone 1 in terms of sales, zone 2 for the sales, so and so on. Those are all called shape files. So if you use it or if you get it from some application, you can also import that into Zoho Analytics, right? Now, in terms of fetching the file from a local drive, you have a couple of limitations to notice. So one is at the right-hand side top corner, if you notice, you can import a data size which is less than 100 MB or less than 1 million records as a CSV. If you want to upload more, then you have to use something called Data Bridge, which I will touch base when I'm talking about the database connections. Now, if you want to import, let's say I'm just trying to create a new workspace here called Zoho Ecosystem demo. and I just want to pick a file, which is a sample sales file. So I'm just going to show you a couple of capabilities here. If you just pick a file, then it asks you to enter the table name, which you do it. And by default, it takes the first row of that particular file as a column header, and it'll automatically detect the data type, which is particularly the date formats. So if you want to change the date formats from the files that you're trying to import, you can do it here. And most importantly, if you have a look at this, by default, Zoho Analytics automatically detect the different types of data that we have. For example, it's going to be the plain text, it can be your currency data, it can be your so-and-so data types, right? How this works? By understanding the first 50 or 100 records in your files, it can automatically detect the data type. But one thing that you have to ensure is, please select the right data type. We see customers go for a wrong data type. For example, if you choose plain text as a date, then you cannot do analysis like a chronological order analysis like Jan, Feb, and March. Your first month will be April, right? So you have to choose the right data type. That's the most important part. So validate that when you're trying to connect from the local drive. So that's how you connect data from a local drive, and you can import it into the Zoho Analytics. Let me choose this, go next. Apart from that, this is something you might notice, or you might missed it in many cases. You may have some inconsistency in your data, meaning you may have some, for example, let's say you have a column called date, but instead of a date value, you might have a plain text value there, like ABC, or you may have a numeric value like 1, 2, 3 inside the date column, which is an invalid data. So in that case, what action should be performed in Zoho Analytics is something that you can choose it here. If you prefer to make that entire record as empty, you can do that. Or if you want to skip that entire record, you can also do that. Or if you stop the complete data import process, you can also do that. So it's all about how you want to handle this error if there are some mismatches in your data, right? So these are all the options when you're trying to fetch the data from the local drives. So in terms of, apart from fetching this from the local drive, obviously you have the option to import data from FTP servers. So this is not, highly used in many organizations, but definitely enterprises, if let's say somebody keeps sending me some files, I just want to put it into a server in a particular destination, and I just want to fetch that. That's something that you can use it. So you just need to specify the path, and there are different types of authentications and so on. So if you use FTP server, definitely you know these details, like different types of protocols and different types of authentication mechanisms and so on. So just want to let you know that Zoho Analytics can also connect the FTP servers. Apart from that, let's say I just want to pick a file from a hosted server. You can also do that. All you need to do is just specify the URL here. And for example, let me go ahead and choose this URL. If you have a URL, something like this, if you execute this URL, it will be downloading a file, as you can see. So if you have that hosted URL, you can just simply put that. If you have any authentication technique, you can choose that and import the data as well. Now, why I'm highlighting this capability, some of the data sources that we don't support, for example, if you have your own custom application, or if you have some specific custom applications which is not listed as a part of the import process in Zoho Analytics, then if that application support export API, so when I say export API, typically it will be in the form of URL. If you're able to construct an URL from that application, then you can automate the data import process from that particular source, which is not supported in Zoho Analytics. So this is one of the most frequently used workaround to connect different applications, which is not directly supported in Zoho Analytics. So if you're not sure how to construct an export API URL, just contact the support of that particular business application. Say that you want to, whether they support that first. If they support it, all you need to do is ask them to construct a URL, something like this, and give it to you. You just need to put this URL and you go next. it'll show you the data. And once you create the scheduler, if you notice this, there is an option called schedule this import process. So you have the option to automate and fetch the data from that particular source into Zoho Analytics. Now, obviously the schedulers is be it weekly, daily, monthly, whatever you want, you can do that. And also, if you notice this particular option, how you want to perform this import, would you prefer to keep adding the new records that's coming in? You can do that. Or if you just want to avoid the duplicates that's coming from your source, then there is an option called add records and replace if it is already existing. So in this case, it's nothing but kind of updating the existing records and adding the new records, right? So for that, you need to choose a column which is unique, meaning it should have the unique values and something like ID columns. So if you choose that ID, that can automatically go ahead and upload the things without having a duplicate inside your data. So in this way, you can connect data, which is data sources, which is not supported in Zoho Analytics as well. All right, so those are all something we call it as a basic import. You connect the data source, you bring the data, be it your files and feeds, FTPs, or URLs, and so on. Apart from this, we also support a lot of cloud storages, all popular cloud storages, I would say. So be it Zoho Work Drive or Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, everything. So we support a lot of cloud storages. The process is same. I'm not going to repeat things in detail. All you need to do is just choose the cloud storage, browse the file. If it is a third-party cloud storage like Google or Dropbox, you just need to authenticate it. Once you authenticate it, you just need to go ahead and choose the file which you're trying to import and go next and proceed further. Obviously, the process is going to be same. And also you have the option to go ahead and schedule this data import process from any given cloud storages. So this is also one of the frequently used workaround method, because if customers are unable to directly connect some business applications, many business applications allow you to push your data to any cloud storage, right, on a schedule basis. Or let's say your vendors or distributors or clients who will be sending the file through emails, ask them to just upload it in a cloud storages, and you just map it, you automate that data import process altogether, right? So the rest of the process is same, add records, delete records, and all those processes are going to be same. Apart from this, if you notice that in the cloud storages section, you also have the option to import data from Dropbox, OneDrive, SharePoint, Amazon S3, and everything. So SharePoint, Amazon S3, widely used, or even the global cloud storage, not the Google Drive, Google Cloud Storage. These three options are widely used in the enterprises. So in case you have such a requirement of bringing in a large volume of data inside Zoho Analytics, you can choose this. By the way, Zoho Analytics can scale billions and billions of records. In the website in the website pricing, you might see the maximum limit is 50 million or something. But there is a custom pricing plan which you can contact us. We do have customers using 2 billion records, 3 billion records, and so on in a single account. So it's very, very much scalable as a matured platform, right? So that's how you connect the local drives and files and feeds. Now getting into the Zoho ecosystem, obviously these are all the applications that is supported within the Zoho ecosystem. So if you already have integrated it, then the process is same. But if you just want to add any new Zoho application to that, all you need to do is just go ahead and choose that Zoho application and choose the modules and fields. You should be an administrator. Choose the modules and fields, schedule how frequently that you want to bring the data. The minimum data synchronization frequency that you see by default is 3 hours. But we can also support up to 1 hour in certain pricing plan. Also, if you're in Zoho One or in certain pricing plans in Zoho Analytics, you can contact us through support. We can enable 1 hour data synchronization for you on request. Coming to Zoho Books in specific, this is I was about to cover. So if you have a look at the Zoho Books, apart from the other data integrations that we support, there is one difference in Zoho Books. There is an option to consolidate data from multiple organizations from Zoho Books. So in case you're using Zoho Books with multiple orgs or entities, then all you need to do is just simply choose this option, import multiple organization. Just select the number of organizations that you want to consolidate. So you can have a consolidated P&L or balance sheet or income statement, whatever you want to do across all organizations. Now, one important limitation you should keep in mind is only if you have a same base currency, you can consolidate it. If the base currencies are different, then you have to go through a workaround. So let's say you deal business between Canada and US. So you deal transactions in Canadian dollars and as well as US dollars. Now, if you want to do the conversion rate and then consolidate both these and do a consolidated P&L or balance sheet, you can also do that. But that's kind of a workaround. If you have same base currencies, for example, you have an entity in New York, California, Texas, you want to consolidate all these three and everything is done in the USD, the process is simple. All you need to do is just go ahead and select it, select this option and consolidate it. Yes, but other than that, the integration with any Zoho applications, the process is simple. All you need to do is just go ahead and choose, select the modules and fields and configure the integration. Now, one important point is we do see some customers selecting all modules and all columns and fields all the time, which is not the best practices, to be honest, right? Whatever required for analytics, please choose that alone, right? Because it's going to impact the performance for your workspace. If you have too many data, every time when you open a view, it's going to go ahead and refresh and check everything in all the layers, be it a lookup, be it a calculation, whatever you want to do, it takes the time to process. So try to choose the required data set. At any point of time, you can go back, edit, and choose that required data. But the best practice is stick with the required data set. All right. So apart from this, there is an option to import data from third-party data sources as well. When I say third-party sources, be it external CRM applications or marketing applications, finance applications, ERPs, e-commerce applications, so on, help desk applications, and so on. So Zoho Analytics offers a native integration with wide range of third-party applications as well, same as Zoho. The only difference you do here is in terms of configuration, you need to authenticate the account. That's it. The rest of the process, like selecting the module, selecting the fields, everything is going to be the same. All right, so that's how you connect the business applications. Now, getting into the databases and data lakes. So when it comes to the databases and data lakes, Zoho Analytics once again offers native integration with a lot of databases, data lakes, data warehouses, and so on. And to make it simple, I'm broadly categorizing this into two different aspects. There are databases which you can install within your local network, which we call it as a local database or local servers. And there are some cloud-hosted databases or data warehouse applications as well, or services. For example, AWS, Azure, GCP, so on and so on. Zoho Analytics offers integration with both these aspects. So if you want to bring data from your cloud-hosted databases, for example, let's say I'm just trying to connect the Amazon RDS here. All I need to do is just choose that. And inside the Amazon RDS, I might have different types of databases installed. So all I need to do is just choose the right database. And if you're aware of the instance details, you just need to put that endpoint and so on. Let me pick that here. Here we go. So I just configured the endpoint and okay. So if I just fill in the required details, then all I can do is just go ahead and connect the data which lives in Amazon RDS, and I can bring in the data. But one of the key capabilities I just want to explain here is the connection type. So if you see the first option, there is an option to bring the data from your source. So technically you're taking a copy of the data set from that source and you're importing that into the Zoho Analytics for data analysis. So that's what the first option. The second option is what we call it as live connect, or in the industry term, they call it as direct querying or refresh, live refresh, and so on. So if you choose this option, your entire data set will not be imported into the Zoho Analytics. It offers the native connections. So technically, we just fetch only the metadata information, which is column names and table names. That's it. It's not the complete transactional data coming in. So in this case, you have the option to go ahead and build the reports and dashboards. Whenever you open that, it'll go ahead and query the source, which is your source database, and gives you the result in the real time. So it's not like you're importing the data. So you cannot do some kind of a data preparation here. You have to do all those data preparation in the source. Only for the visualization purpose, you can do this live connect. And also, if you want to do this, eventually you have to keep in the mind that when you deal with hundreds and hundreds of millions of data, right, records, you might feel some slowness or limitations because various factors will be involved, which includes Zoho Analytics service, Amazon service, network, and so on. So if you have a use case where you want to do the real-time monitoring, then use this. Else, the data import option is the best. Also at the top, if you notice this, there are two different ways to connect that. You need to whitelist a set of IP address, and then you have to directly use this integration. If you don't want to do that, then you have the option to use something called Data Bridge, which I will quickly touch base in terms of local databases connection. So if you just fill in all the details, this is how it's going to be looking like. So you just need to proceed next. Choose the modules, which is nothing but the tables from the source. Or if you want to execute a custom SQL query and bring in the data, you can also do that. Or in case you have stored procedures, you can select and bring the data as well. So all you need to do is just choose this and proceed with the setup process. It will automatically bring in the data from Amazon into Zoho Analytics on a scheduled basis. So one last option is connecting the local databases. So let me choose the MS SQL server here. And in terms of the local database, since that resides inside your local network, right, we cannot have a direct connection from the user interface. So to solve this, we have a utility called Zoho Data Bridge. So this utility can be installed inside your database, or as a matter of fact, inside any machine which connected to the database and internet. So that can establish the connection with your local database, take the data and put it into the Zoho cloud on a scheduled basis. So if you're configuring it for the first time, it'll give you a prompt, ask you to download the data bridge. So you can see that I already downloaded and configured a data bridge, and it says it's active. Now all I need to do is just enter the details and connect my local database. So I have a local database hosted in a place. So let me quickly fill these details and show you how the connection looks like. So that's the host name, all right, the database name, and go next. So this technically connecting the data bridge and connecting my local database I have hosted in a particular place, and gives me the option to go ahead and choose all the data which I want and import it into Zoho Analytics, which is the process is going to be same as how you're bringing in the data from the cloud storage or anywhere. So data bridge can be also used to fetch large files. Let's say your file size is more than 100 MB or something, you can also use data bridge to fetch it. And not just that, you also have the option to use data bridge to automate the process of import from your local drive. Let's say in a particular location in your local drive, if you're just going to keep updating a particular file name, if you want to automate that import process, data bridge can help you to just fetch that file from the local drive as well on a schedule basis. Yeah, so these are all the options. That's the first stage. So all you need to do is ensure that you take the data from the source, bring it into the Zoho Analytics. That's the first stage. So whatever the data point that you have, wherever you collecting the data, be it the business applications, cloud storages, files and feeds, and so on, you just need to use this option to consolidate everything. Now, to consolidate everything into a single workspace, first configure the first data source. The second data source, open that workspace, click on Create at the left, choose this option called Import New Table, choose the data source and bring that data into the Zoho Analytics. So in this way, you can consolidate all different data sources into a single workspace. At any point of time, you can access this data source tab at the left. So here, no configurations done, but you can go ahead and edit those setups, make changes, and so on. Another option is, in case you have multiple workspaces, you want to fetch data from another workspace, you can also go ahead and choose this option called Import from another workspace and choose this option and bring the data into the Zoho Analytics. So that's the first stage. So you need to ensure that your data is available inside the Zoho Analytics in a single place. Now we'll get into the deeper concept of how to prepare your data with some more complex use cases. So getting into the most important stage, right? Because, I mean, if you take some time to learn this particular stage, the rest of the stage is so simple and so easy to do. But there are two different ways to do this in the Zoho Analytics or Zoho ecosystem. One, you can use Zoho Analytics formula or query tables and lookup features to do that, which is nothing but data preparation. Or you can use the product called Zoho Data Prep, which is more self-service and simple to use, right? So it's a choice that is available for you. If you prefer to do that in Zoho Analytics, that's what I'm going to quickly show you. I'm going to quickly touch base what are all the capabilities available in Zoho Analytics to prepare the data or to do some calculations and computations contextually. So once you connect and bring in the data from different data source, so all the data will be available here in form of tables. So at the left, you can see that the yellow color grid-like icon is what we call it as a table. Now let me open the well-known table for most of you, which is deals, right? I'm going to use this particular deals table as an example for many use cases because it is easy to understand. And please note that I'm explaining the logic and the concept of how to use this. It can be applied on top of any data set, be it your financial data set, help desk, or your industry-specific data set like supply chain, healthcare, whatever, you can use it. Now, I mean, I'm sure most of you are aware of this table structure, which is pretty much straightforward. All you have is the list of deal ID, the deal name, the deal owner is the salesperson, opportunity owner is, we can ignore it, the amount, expected revenue. So amount is the actual sale and expected revenue is something that marked by the salesperson, when the deal was created, when the deal was closed, what stage it is in, and so on. It's a simple data set, right? Now, as soon as you get the data into the Zoho Analytics, if I want to create a straightforward report, the apparent or the direct use case, for example, I just want to see based on the closing date, what is the total amount I have for each and every month. So what I can do, I can simply click on new. I can go ahead and choose this option called new chart. And I drag and drop the closing date into the x-axis and drag and drop the amount in the y-axis. Now it gives me the choice that should I go with the year-wise analysis or quarter-wise analysis or month-wise analysis. I choose that. And I can go ahead and choose something called amount, which is sum, minimum, maximum, average, whatever the mathematical calculation which you prefer to perform, just choose that and click on generate. It gives you the result. It's very simple because you have this data readily available from your source, which is the amount and the closing date, right? So if you just want to perform any analytics on top of the data, which is readily available from your source, this is the step. You just need to go ahead and create the report directly. But I have a use case that I just want to find the difference between the expected revenue and the actual amount. So let's assume that the expected revenue are marked by my salesperson for every deal, saying that this is the expected deal closure, and the actual closure is going to be different. Now, based on the expected revenue and based on the expected closing date or stage or something, you're trying to do a projection and say, this much be my revenue in the next 3 months or 6 months or something, right? So you're trying to do some forecasting based on the expected revenue marked by the salesperson. But the reality is going to be different, right? At the end of the day. So you want to find the difference between the expected revenue and the actual revenue. So all you need to do is just click on Add, go to a formula. There are 2 different types of formula supported in Zoho Analytics. One is called formula column. The other one is called aggregate formula. Let me keep it simple. Let's select a row. If I want to perform any calculation across the columns in a single row level, in each and every row level, that's what I just want to go ahead and that's when I just need to go ahead and choose something called formula column. If I want to perform any operation in the column level and I just want to use the aggregate functions like sum, average, minimum, whatever, then I need to choose the aggregate formula. So row level computation, formula column level computation, we call it as aggregate formula. Now, formula column will create a physical result, which is a physical column as the result, but aggregate formula doesn't create any physical columns as a result, but when you try to create a report, that column will be available here at the left. So let me simplify this. Let's go with this use case. I just want to do a computation, expected revenue minus actual revenue. So it's a simple minus operation. So all I need to do is just go ahead and create a new column called formula column. Let me name it as amount difference in deals. Okay. And if you focus this at the right hand side, you have 2 different tabs. The first tab says columns. Columns are nothing but each and every field or columns you have it in the base table. And you have something called functions. Now, in terms of columns, I just want 2 columns, which is expected revenue, right? So whenever I select this column, you can notice that it comes under the double quotes. So this is the standard or the syntax that you're supposed to follow. Whenever you create a formula in Zoho Analytics, column names goes into the double quotes. So if you select it, it automatically fills in. Now, you hit minus, which is the operator, the symbol, and you choose the amount. So if you choose it, it automatically fills with the double quotes again. So you have the expected revenue minus actual revenue, and that's it. That's what I'm trying to do. I just hit on save. This creates a new column as a result in my table. You can see that. And that gives me the insights on what's the actual difference between the expected revenue and the actual revenue. Now, let me go ahead and create a chart which gives me the deal owner wise. What is the difference? So this is the column I have created. I drag and drop it. And I just want to take the average and see on average, what is the difference entered by each and every salesperson in general, right? So if you see this particular person called David Lau, whatever the deal he closes, there is a big difference between the expected revenue and the actual revenue, which is $1,700 plus, right? And you see Thomas always making a very big difference out there. So I'm just trying to keep this context that it's a very simple calculation which you perform. You just right click on it. You just go ahead, add a formula, and you just specify the column names, and that's it. The calculation is done. Now, this is a simple use case. Now, let's take a use case next to this level, which is nothing but I just want to calculate my average sales cycle. Okay. So average sales cycle is nothing but from the created date till the closing date, how many days you have in between, right? So if I take that as an average, I can find my average sales cycle for each and every deal. Okay, that's the simple calculation. But for this, you need to use functions. So if you're new to the functions altogether, functions is nothing but it helps you to drive some specific action on top of your data set and gives you that particular result. So in this case, I just want to go with the function called days diff or date diff. So let me go ahead and choose that. Yeah. So if I just zoom in, there is a function called date diff. And if I'm not sure on how to use this function, simply go ahead and hold the mouse pointer in the info icon, which explains you how to use this function. It looks complex, but let me simplify. At the top, you can see the function name, which is date_diff, and it comes inside the bracket where I just want to specify the to date, which is the closing date, and comma from date, which is the created time. So all I need to do is just go ahead and choose this date diff, and I go to the column and I choose the to date, which is closing date, comma, created date, right? So functions in the combination of columns. So I'm just trying to name this as days difference in deals or average sales cycle. And I just hit on save. Now, a new physical column has been created, and that gives me the number of days difference between the created time and the closing time. Now, this can be more complex. You can keep adding more and more functions, more and more columns, more and more combinations of operators to any given use case, right? It can be depends upon your use case. For example, if my deal is not closed, then my closing date will be empty. So in that case, I just want to take the current date instead of closing date. So what I do, I already have a formula. Let me quickly open it. Yeah. If you just focus this formula, it simply gives you this option called date diff. There is a function called if null, meaning if the closing date is null or empty, then take the current date by default, or take the closing date and calculate the difference between the closing date and the created date. So a formula is always a combination of columns, operators, functions. It's just the three components you will be using, or values, 3 to 4 components. If you use this 4 parameter, you can write any complex formulas as the way you want. It can be n number of functions, n number of calculations, so on. So you can write multiple formulas, layer over layer formulas. You can use any complex set of functions, any combination of columns, and so on. So once again, please note that I'm trying to explain the logic of how to create the formula. This can be for any use case, be it your supply chain data, be it your healthcare data, be it your sales data, marketing data, finance, whatever it is. The logic is you just need to learn what is function, what is column name, and what is operator. If you learn that, it can be any given combination. Now, I'm sure nobody can remember all the function names because there are some 500 or 1000 plus function names. So it's hard for you to remember. Just simply go ahead and Google. Just ask, what is the function to create a calculation? You'll get the result. It's just as simple as that. Just Google the function name. Now we are making it even more easy with the ChatGPT integration contextually. So let me demonstrate the same use case with ChatGPT. So if you have a look at this is what I was saying. So this particular Zia feature you see here, this uses the ChatGPT integration, right? I will create the same formula by typing in the prompt, and it gives me the same results. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to find the date difference between created date and closing date. So let me say create a formula to find the date or probably days difference, whatever you call it as in the simple term, between the created date and the closing date. Okay. It gives me some level of answer here. Let me try to find the different prompt. Probably a date difference. Let me remove this, try to generate again. Here we go. Right? So you're typing in things in the natural language and it gives you the result, which uses the ChatGPT integration. So here we are not sending your data to OpenAI or ChatGPT. We are only sending the metadata, which is nothing but the column name and the table name. Your actual transactional data will be in Zoho Analytics. And this is the optional configuration for you. If you want to use ChatGPT, all you need to do is just go to the Zoho Analytics organization settings at the right-hand side top corner. And here in the features control, you have OpenAI integration. So you have to put your own OpenAI key and you need to enable these capabilities like formula, SQL, wherever you want to use the ChatGPT integration, just go ahead and select it. And that's it. When you apply it, it'll be available for you like this contextually, right? So, I mean, if you consider about the data privacy, obviously, as I said, we are not sending the transactional data. We are sending only the metadata. But if you just want to do this outside Zoho Analytics and ChatGPT and copy that function and put it into Zoho Analytics, all you need to do is just replace the right column names. Typically, ChatGPT will give you the correct response in terms of the functions. So if you're not sure on the function, just use ChatGPT to find the function. Replace the column names. It's as simple as that. It can generate very complex formulas as well. For example, I just want to bucket and group the amount range of 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000. I just need to create a group using a formula. If you ask ChatGPT, it will give you the result. Just replace the right column names, it'll work. Or even as one of the best practices in terms of prompt engineering is, you can also simply send or type in the column names also. Say, I just want to create this formula based on the created date and the closing date. That's your actual, the column name or field name. If you mention it, you will get the better response in the ChatGPT integration, right? So that's how you do the calculations in top of your data set. Now, apart from these calculations, you do have the option called lookup. So let me explain that case a bit. So whenever you are integrating any business apps with Zoho Analytics, by default, it will create the data model. So data model, the term might sound complex. To keep it in simple, it automatically creates the joins between the tables. So let's say you're trying to connect Zoho CRM with Zoho Analytics. It creates this joins automatically. For any given business applications, it can take, this particular work can be taken care automatically. But if you're trying to bring in data from your local files and feeds or databases or cloud storages, then you need to go ahead and configure this lookup relationship between the data sets. So for that, I have a very quick example. Let's go with the same deals example. I think that's more simpler than the samples what I was looking for. So let's say if you have a look at this deals and leads tables, right? So you know what is deals, which I have explained. Leads is nothing but a stage before that. Obviously, you have a list of leads coming in. Let's assume that there is no connection between these two data set. Then you cannot do some analysis like, let's say if you see the leads module or the leads table, you have a column called industry, you have a column called lead source and so on. You don't have that details here in lead deals. So if I want to perform some analysis like creating a chart which helps me with the industry-wise sales. So all I need to do is just drag and drop the industry here, which is from the leads table, and then the amount from the deals table, and I click on generate, it gives me the result on industry-wise sales, right? But if you don't have a lookup between these two tables, like leads and deals, then you cannot do this. You cannot take columns from multiple tables to do this analysis. So for that, what you have to do, for business apps, these integration will happen by default. But in general, if you want to join two data set, then all you need to do is just simply right click on that particular column. Let's assume that I'm trying to join this deal owner with something. So all I need to do is just right click on and go ahead and choose this option called change to a lookup column. So when you choose this option, you have the option to select the destination column which you're trying to connect, which is probably, I'll just name it as some owner like account owner or something. So I just want to connect the deal owner with account owner. I just search it and choose it. It's very simple, but I'll tell you the complexity here. Here it is. So there are different techniques and different types of join between two data sets. Okay. So this is where we see a lot of people struggle because they don't know how the logic in terms of joining the data set. So there are 4 different types of joins. Let's simplify that. Let's take 2 different tables, table A and table B. You have a matching column between both the tables. Now you have unique records in both the tables in that particular column. Then you can simply go ahead and choose the first option because you don't have any duplicates. Let's say you have 100 records in table A. You have 100 records in table B. You just want to connect this 100 records with 100 records. That's it. So all you need to do is just choose the first option, which is one-to-one join. So technically in the SQL, you call it as an inner join, right? Now, the second most use case. You have 2 tables, table A and table B. You have unique records in table A, but you don't have unique records in table B, right? So for example, let's say you have the list of employees and you have salary of those employees for every month. So the salary of the employees for every month is going to be repeated, right? But the list of employees are always unique. So in this case, you'll be using these 2 options, which is nothing but the one-to-many or many-to-one. So in this case, you're connecting from the salary table to the employees list. So it's going to be many-to-one. So you just need to choose that and you go ahead and connect because you have many records in one table and you have unique records in the other table. You simply go ahead and join it. So you use the lookup feature, you use the formula feature to address all your use case. If you're unable to do that, only then you go ahead and create something called SQL queries. Else, please don't create SQL queries, right? Because I know a lot of customers got developer expertise or skill set. So they just go ahead and keep creating the query tables, which obviously, it's okay to do with like 100 query tables or maybe 1,000 query tables. That's fine. We have customer using more than 58,000 query tables in a single account. Now they're at the point that they have to employ somebody as a data governance officer to find where it is, right? So, I see this as a very often use case. When you start using the analytics over a period of time, if let's say 5 years from now, definitely if you keep creating the query tables for each and every report that you want to build, definitely you will end up in too many views, which is eventually slow down your system. So if you're unable to solve a use case with the formula and the joins, only then go for the query tables, and else don't do that. And of course, query tables can solve most of the use case, many complex use cases. So you can use it, obviously. You can also write query over queries as well. We allow you to do up to 3 levels of query over queries and do that. So please understand that this particular layer is always complex. If you consolidate the data and you do all the data transformation process, then the analytics process is so simple. Okay. we do see customers spending 80% of the time in the first two stage. That's why I spent a lot of time on this. The rest is very, very easy. If you do this first two stages, it's super easy for you. And the second stage, particularly doing this calculation, this can be done for cleansing the data and so on. But the easiest way to do this is using the Zoho Data Prep, right? Because Zoho Data Prep is developed in a way that it's more self-service with a lot of pre-built capabilities. So all the complex things that we do in analytics with the formulas and codings can be done in Zoho Data Prep with some few clicks. Now let's assume that you're done with all the process. Then it's all about creating the reports and dashboards. So process is so simple. Let's assume that you already created all the required calculations as formulas or query table, whatever. Then it's simple drag and drop interface to build the visualizations. That's it. Or you use the asks. Yeah, I'll just show both the options. But to create any given report, there is a quick logic behind the scenes. The logic is simple. You have to categorize the data into two different aspects. One is we call that data set as an aggregate data, or to keep it in simple terms, it's a numeric data, right? Be it numbers, currency, decimal value, positive number, whatever you call it as, right? We call this as a aggregate data because you can apply some aggregate functionalities on top of the data set, like sum, minimum, maximum, average, whatever, standard deviation. All the mathematical things can be applied on top of numbers, right? So that's what the aggregate things. The other one, we call it as dimensions or grouping data, which is typically the text or geolocation or date, or it can be email address, so and so on. So anything that text or date related, we call it as dimensions or measures. Anything that related to the numeric, we call it as aggregates. If you broadly understand the concept of segregating this data in this way, visualization is so simple, right? Just imagine if I just want to go ahead and do a report on monthly sales, it's a combination of a dimension and an aggregate. A dimension is a date column, which is closing date here. Let me choose the month. And aggregate is nothing but my amount column. So I simply drag and drop this. Generate, that's it. So a report is always a combination of multiple things. So let's say I'm just trying to build a report like this. We call it as KPI indicators. This is a single number report. There is no dimension involved in this much. You do have date, but let's ignore that. Just simply stick with $6 million. This is a simple single aggregate value, right? For that single aggregate value, you don't need dimensions. You just go ahead and choose the amount and put the sum. You will get the details out of it. But if you need one more dimension, that's when you go ahead and create a chart. So chart is a combination of a date, or it can be a text along with an aggregate. Now this is one possible combination. Now I'll try to increase the complexity. One dimension, which is the closing date, and I just want to compare the expected revenue versus actual revenue. Switch the visualization. So one dimension with two aggregates, right? Or simple, let me remove this dimension, add the lead source here. Now two dimensions with one aggregate, right? So whatever the combination that you want to put, just simply drag and drop it into the Zoho Analytics. It'll automatically generate the best visualization for you. So don't worry about the end visualization. Just simply drag and drop it. Zoho Analytics can automatically do it for you. So you have a choice of switching the visualizations at the top. All you need to do is just click this, choose any types of visualizations that you're looking for based on your use case. So there are some general standards of how you analyze the data. For example, if you want to analyze a trend, always go for a line chart. If you want to analyze a distribution, you always go for a pie chart. If you want to analyze a volume, you go for a bar chart. If you want to analyze the location, you go for a GeoChart. These are all the general standards, but that's a long backstory. Now trend changed. You can choose any kind of visualization. Even you can build a visualization, something like this, if you are comfortable with this. Right? So, I mean, it depends upon your requirement. But of course, executives, people prefer to consume the visualizations, which is typically the bar chart, pie chart, and so on. Right? So, I mean, I'm explaining the concept. I'm not teaching you how to create a bar chart or something. Understand that the logical difference between a dimension and an aggregate, and it's a combination to create a chart, right? So here, let me switch back. And at the top, obviously, if you choose this option, you always go back and choose the different types of visualizations in the Zoho Analytics. This is how it works. Now, you can do a lot more customizations. It's not required to, I don't want to explain things right from the scratch, because if you are at this point, if you're done with the data preparation and if you're into this visualization, the rest of the concepts are super easy, right? So all you need to do is, let's say I just want to have a data label. I just need to simply drag and drop it in my text shelf, and I click on generate, it gives me the data label, right? Or if I just want to do a bubble chart, which gives me a circle on top of it, so I can go ahead and choose into the size shelf, which gives me the bubble chart. So it's all about the combinations that you want to put it into a different shelf and gives you the insights on top of it. Coming back to the line chart, when I hover the mouse pointer, I have a tooltip. This gives you the insights on the numbers. If I want to see more information in this, then I just need to simply drag and drop let's say I just want to find the average sales as well. I drag and drop it into the tooltip and generate this and click over it. I can also see the average amount. So whatever information I want to see on request, or I could say the secondary details, primary details are available in the chart. I want something secondary on request, put it in the tooltip. It'll be in traction. All right, so that's how you build this. The next stage is all about filtering. So filtering, once again, there are two different types of filters. So if I have a visualization, I drag and drop a column, I have a choice to choose different types of filters. For example, if I drag and drop a date column, Zoho Analytics will automatically give you the actual values. So let's say I just want to filter only 2024 and 23, I can do that. Or I can go ahead and include this item or exclude these items, and I can see the old data and specific. So it's based on my requirement. I can simply drag and drop the things and use it accordingly. Now, also, I can choose different functions. For example, I just choose the relative date filter. So for, this particular visualization will change automatically for all the last 6 months data. So whenever the data comes in, it goes for the last, let's exclude it, let me include it. Yeah, so it shows only the last 6 months data all the time. So it'll be keep moving. So when you go to the next one, it'll automatically come to that particular data set. So this is how you use the filters. The next thing is, obviously, if you drag and drop other types of data, obviously, let's say I just want to use the lead source, automatically things will change. I have also the wildcard filter where I can go ahead and say contains, does not contain, start with all those conditions and so on. And let's say if I just drag and drop an aggregate field, then things will change. Instead of date like relative date or something, it's going to be like top 5, top 10, all those stuff will come in. So based on the data type that you choose, the filter conditions and the behavior of the filter will change accordingly. And there is a difference between the filters and the user filters. Filters are nothing but it's kind of like a static underlying filter. So let's say I just want to show the top 5, I just filter it. It always shows the top 5 details here. Now, when I go to the view mode, this is how the report looks like. So when the end user come and see this, always the top 5 has been filtered in underlying data. But you just want to provide an option to the end users to play around with the data, then that's where you will be using the user filters. User filters are nothing but providing an option to the end user that the end user can interact with this as an option. Right? So whatever you want to have it as a user filter, simply drag and drop that field into the user filter shelf. That's it. Now you have a lot of customizations in it. It can be a single list, it can be a multi-pick list, so on and so on, and simply it will be available. You can simply choose it and use it also, right? Now, apart from this, so this is how you build a visualization. Now, everything is interactive. You click on data point, you can go ahead and view the underlying data behind the scenes at any point of time. And let's say I have this particular data point, I can go ahead and click. Let's say I just want to see this monthly into the weekly sales, or I can simply click on this drill down. It automatically takes me to the weekly sales. And from the weekly sales, let's say I just want to see the day-wise sales, I can do that. So for all the date columns, this hierarchy will be configured by default. But if you want to do some configurations on your own in terms of drill down path, you just need to go to the settings and choose drill option and go ahead and configure the drill down option here manually, which will take you to different paths. For example, if you provide an option to choose something called drill to the product category, it can go to the product category as well. Now, apart from this, you also have the option to do the dynamic drill downs. So dynamic drill downs is nothing but this shows the monthly sales, but from here, I can just go to the lead source details on May 2023. So from here, I can just simply switch to deal owner-wise details. So it's so dynamic. From any dimensions, you can take it to any given dimensions, right? That's how it works. So this is how you build this charts and visualizations. And of course, you have a lot of customizations in each and every component. The look and feel, the color, the theme, the label, everything can be completely changed when it comes to a visualization. Now, a couple of quick advanced analytics capabilities I just want to touch base, which is nothing but forecasting and trendline analysis. So if you click on Analyze at the top, there is an option called Forecast. If you just click on it, go ahead and add forecasting data. By default, Zoho Analytics will pick model because there might be different techniques to do the forecasting, but let me simply pick this auto and go ahead and apply. It gives me the trends and forecast ahead. Now, coming back to this is a very important topic. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on this. Now, when you click on analysis, so please note that the first criteria is forecasting will work only on top of the timeline dataset, not the general dataset, right? Because it's a time series forecasting that we support. Now, what is the mechanism or the method that resides in the underlying logic when you want to do this forecasting? There are different techniques to do the forecasting. So for the time series analysis, there are some techniques which is widely used in the industry. We call it as ARIMA, ETS, STL, and regression, linear, so on and so on. So these are all widely used forecasting techniques in the industry on top of a time series dataset. So if you really want to learn about it, just Google it. These are all the general standards available. There are a lot of videos available on it. So understand how a ARIMA technique works, how a regression technique works, and so on. And you have the option to make some kind of customizations to get the better result. For example, if you change, in the ETS technique, once again, inside the ETS, you have a lot of techniques, but in general, if you go for the exponential smoothing technique, if you give the alpha, beta, gamma value between, you have the choice of specifying the values as 0 to 1, but the values that you give closer to 1 will give more weightage to the recent past data set rather than the historic data set. So these are all the methods and logic behind the scenes. All you need to do is just Google these techniques and learn and find which model will work for you, right? So it's all pre-built. It's not complex. Just go ahead and enable this with a couple of clicks. That's it. Similarly, you can also do something called trendline analysis. So trendline analysis is all about how you want to see the overall trend. So if you see this overall trend, which is growing, but if you have ups and downs in your data, this line will give you a clear projection on how your business is going, whether it's going towards the upward trend or a lower trend, that you can simply go ahead and choose it. Now, there are some other advanced analytics capabilities that we have recently introduced. We just launched it yesterday, so which is something that in the beta stage, so we are not touching base that now. but during the general availability in a couple of months, we'll talk about that in detail. Apart from that, you have something called ZIA suggestions. So ZIA suggestions are nothing but if let's say you have a particular visualization, you want suggestions to build a chart, it can do that. Yeah, so this is how you build a visualization. Now quickly getting into a pivot view. A pivot view is nothing but, instead of a chart, if you want to see the things in a tabular view way, you go for a pivot view. But the most important difference here is when you have more dimensions, let's say you have 3 to 4 different dimensions and 2 to 3 different aggregates, you want to group it together and do some analysis, you go for the pivot view. For example, let's say I just want to see the deal owner wise amount. Instead of x-axis and y-axis, here I simply put it in the row shelf. It gives me the deal owner wise amount or sales. Now, if I just want to add the lead source on top of it, I can simply go ahead and put it in the column shelf. These values are extrapolated as a column. If I put it in the row shelf, it groups it automatically in the row level category. So it's a multi-dimension expandable where you can keep expanding things as the way you want. And if you want to see more details on that, that's how, the pivot view is all kind of like a summarized, more granular details, right? And you have a lot of customizations available. You can simply go ahead and make changes in the themes, colors, the look and feel, and everything on top of your data set. Now, more importantly, let me quickly close this. Yeah. So this is how a pivot view will look like. It can be customized as the way you want. But a couple of important things. If you notice that each and every group will have a subtotal details here. So if you just collapse it, it gives you only the subtotal details. And you can expand that and you can make this particular layer as interactive as well, right? And also if you simply right click on it, you have other choices as well. Let's say I just want to do a conditional formatting saying that if the total amount is greater than or equal to 250K, then just put it in the green text. So it will give you the green text and so on. You can do a lot more customizations. If it is less than 250K, then put this as a red. And I just want to put an up arrow or down arrow or kind of like a KPI indicator or even a sad smiley. I can do that. Here we go. So you can do a complete customizations in terms of the pivot view as the way you want, right? The concept of the filters, user filters, and everything is going to be the same, no changes. So if you build all these reports, then eventually you put everything together in form of a dashboard, which is simple. You just need to drag and drop it and arrange it as the way you want. It can be a flexible layer. It can be any kind of view that you want to place. Now, also you have the option to add the widgets, which is nothing but the single number reports. So in terms of widgets, once again, you have a choice of simply go ahead and add a dimension. For example, let's say I just want this data column to be the amount from the deals or invoices. Let me simply choose that. And I just want to group this based on the invoice year and date. Let me do that and apply. It creates me a KPI indicator. Now, obviously, I can duplicate it. I can customize how I want this. For example, I want this with a KPI indicator saying that my trend is up or down compared to my previous value. I can do that, or I can get the single value as well, or I can go ahead and get a different types of charts like a bullet chart or a dial chart when I want to do a target versus actuals, right? So, once again, this connecting back to the basic logic, right? The basic logic is data, and on top of it, what type of data? Then it's all about what combination that you want to visualize. That's it, right? So if you understand the first two layers of consolidating the data and preparing the data, the visualization components are more simple, and all other features are self-explanatory. We're not spending a lot of time on that because let's say I just want to change the theme, the color, the look and feel. All those things are available in the product. If you just click on settings, you can explore these things on your own if you understand the concept of data consolidation and modeling, right? So this is how you create a dashboard. Of course, you can have user filters, you can have multiple tabs in the dashboards, you can have a common user filter across multiple tabs. So all those concepts are available by default. So let's assume that you're done with this. The next important capability is Ask Zia. So this is the toughest way of creating all the reports and dashboards using drag and drop interface. Ask Zia will help you to do it more simply, right? All you need to do is just type in what you want and the report will be built automatically, right? But you should know how to use this Ask Zia, right? If your data is inconsistent, if your data is not connected, if your data is not available, then Zia is not going to work. Zia will work if you really have the first two layers solidly built. If your first two layers are not done, Zia cannot work on top of it, right? So if your data is prepared and available for analytics, instead of using the drag and drop interface, you just simply type in what you want and the report built automatically. But if you just notice this in detail, for example, sales by items, you can see that Zia automatically gives an underline on a particular word which I typed in. Zia try to just connect the column name that you have, right? And based on the different natural language things that you put in, it's give you the combination of multiple things. Now, it's easy to use Zia, but the best practices to use the Zia is to configure the synonyms for it, right? If you really want to open up this to your end users, the end users can simply come and access all types of reports, everything. Then it's worth putting in effort for a couple of days to train the Zia with the right set of synonyms, right? So the first thing that you have to do is don't open up the complete data set to your end users. Go ahead and choose this option called include exclude data. With this include exclude data, you can go ahead and say, I just want to include these data set in Zia or not. That's the first step you're supposed to do. The second step is just simply go ahead and specify the synonyms. So you just limit the data that you want to open up, and then you configure the synonyms, train this, and open this up to your end users. If you do this, then end users can type in any term. Instead of the sales, they can type it as amount or whatever. By months, it can give you the appropriate result, right? So it works based on the synonyms and it works based on the configuration. By the way, it's multilingual. Obviously, you can use the English, Spanish, French, and so on. And also, this particular Zia component can be taken and embed anywhere inside your applications also. So you can take it inside your CRM and use it contextually. Finally, a quick thing in terms of the final layer, which is nothing but the collaboration aspect. So once you build all these things, right? Let's say I just create all these things. Now I want to understand how to analyze this report. That's where more AI component coming in. We call it as Zia Insights. So on top of this visualization, this gives you a summary on what's happening in this particular visualization. So by default, Zia Insights will go through a lot of the case behind the stack or different types of analysis techniques like trend analysis, distribution analysis, correlation analysis, Pareto, whatever, and gives you the insights on top of this, explaining what is happening in this particular report. So it's one way of storytelling that the end users can easily consume it. Now, final thing in terms of collaboration. Now, let's say you built all these things. You just want to share it with somebody. All you need to do is just go ahead and click on share, select share this view, enter the email address of the person to whom you need to share this. Let's say I just want to share this with Robert. I select the email address. You have a fine grained access control of how you want to share it. Whether you want to provide access to export the data or view underlying data, or inside the view underlying data, I just want to control some specific columns, I can do that. And more importantly, you have this option to specify something called row level security. Row level security is nothing but, let's say I have East region data and West region data. I don't want to reveal the East region data to my West region manager. I can specify that region equal to East. So it will filter and show that particular data set to the end users when they consume it, right? So that's one of the important capability you have to use. And apart from that, the rest of the collaborations are pretty much straightforward. You can simply go ahead and export the report in any given format. You can simply go ahead and email the report, or you can configure the emails which will automatically deliver the report to the end user at that scheduled time at your preference. For example, here, select the scheduler, which will automatically push the report to the end users, or you have the option to publish these reports by generating an URL and simply share it to the end users in form of URL. But if you want to do this as a URL, a couple of things you have to keep in mind. You have a choice of with login and without login. With login is you have to share the report with that user, but without login is public. Anybody can see it. But once again, you have to decide whether you want to publish this report publicly, right? Other than that, it can be taken as an iframe, can be embedded anywhere. And apart from that, you also have the option to go ahead and use this comment option to collaborate with other users like a social media connect post, or it can be an alert. So let's say if a criteria met, I just want to trigger a notification. For example, if my sales go above 100K, I just want to get a notification. I can configure it. I get the notification via email. I get the notification in IM channels. I get the notification as an in-app banner, or even it can trigger a webhook request. Let's say I just want to create a task inside my CRM if my customer satisfaction percentage goes down. I can do that, which will automatically create a task as well. Yeah, so apart from that, one last option I just want to touch base is creating slideshows. So if you select multiple reports and choose slideshow option, Zoho Analytics will provide you this interactive slideshow option, which can be incorporated with some text and all other elements. So every time you don't want to prepare a presentation for your meetings, simply go ahead and build a slideshow and use it. Or if you publish this content to your end users, there are a lot of people prefer not to see these things in form of a dashboard or report. Simply, they prefer to see this as a part of a presentation to understand that. That's what we call it as a data storytelling. So you can simply build presentations with interactive visualization and send it to your end users. The last but not least, you have something called portals. So portals are nothing but this. If this user interface is complex where the end users has to come and search for multiple things and so on, that's when you go for a portal. Portal is nothing but providing an option to the end user so to simply access a URL, which is your customized portal, navigate the pages and access all the reports and dashboards. Now what you do, you define this navigation path, you define the pages at the left and provide access to the end users. So you can restrict access based on the pages and end users can also consume it. Yes, with that, I think I'm just coming to the end. This is the complete story. Connecting data sources, preparing data, building the visualizations, collaboration is more simple. So as I said, if you spend more and more time on the first two layers and ensure that your data is all set for analytics, then the analytics part is super simple and super easy. And the more easiest way of preparing the data is using Zoho Data Prep. Thank you so much.